Hi, I would like us to start talking about area. Area is now chapter 11 in geometry. Hopefully, for the most part, this is going to be more of a review than anything else because you did learn about area back in middle school. So, hopefully, this is more of a refresher than anything else. So, let's define what it means to be area. Area is going to be the number of square units of space within the boundary of a closed region. Okay, so square units of space within a boundary of a closed region. All right, so we need to be dealing with shapes that are completely connected to each other. And so a couple of the shapes that we're going to be talking about in this particular video would be a rectangle and a square. Now, because we are dealing with area is going to be involving multiplication. And when we're multiplying units, because we are going to be multiplying several units together, that's why we are always going to want to deal with labels. And whatever those labels are, so it could be inches or centimeters or meters, we want those units to be squared. So it is going to be crucial that you are labeling anytime you have to do an area problem with units as well as just a number. All right, if we take a look at a picture of a rectangle, remember a rectangle is four sides where opposite sides are congruent. So these two sides are congruent, these two sides are congruent. The other stipulation is that you have to have at least one right angle. Okay, so when we're talking about a rectangle, we're going to only need to really focus on two out of the four sides. I'm going to call the bottom of this rectangle B for the base, and I'm going to call the side right here the height. Okay, so hopefully we remember that to find the area of a rectangle, we're going to take base and multiply it by the height. So as long as you have one of each of those lengths, you multiply them together, you've got your area of a rectangle. When we're talking about a square, well, if I was to sketch a picture, remember a square is four sides. We have at least one right angle, but the difference between a rectangle and a square is that a square has all sides congruent. So once again, you can think of that side down here as B and this one is H, and it is the exact same formula as my formula for a rectangle. Area is just base times height. However, another way you can think of that is that if you just label one side S, well, every side is S. And so another way you can think of it, because you have to multiply S times S in order to get your area, another way of thinking about it is as long as you know the side of the square, you can just square that number and you've got your area. So two potential formulas for square, only one for rectangle. So let's take a look at a couple of quick examples. I want us to find the area of the rectangle. So even though it's not labeled with a right angle, there is a right angle here. Okay, so if there's a right angle there, there's technically a right angle here. Notice that in this problem, I'm giving you one of the sides of the rectangle to be 5, but I don't have the other side of the rectangle. What I have instead is the diagonal. Hopefully we notice that this diagonal is creating two right triangles where we actually have a family. Remember, it is a 5, 12, 13 family. So the two numbers that are going to be crucial are 5 and in this case 12. So the only reason why I needed the 13 was to find the 12. If I'm looking for area, I'm going to take base times height. And when I multiply those two numbers together, 12 times 5 is going to get me 60. But because I have these units, it's going to be centimeters squared for the rest of my answer. If I look at the second example here, it says to find the area of a square. So once again, even though it's not labeled, there is a right angle there. Okay, I need the sides of the square in order to find the area, and they have given me only the diagonal. But remember, if these two sides are congruent, I technically have not only a right triangle, but an isosceles right triangle. And so if those two sides are congruent, the two angles directly across from those sides are congruent, which more importantly then, if we remember, creates a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So if we remember our properties of a 45, 45, 90 triangle, I always want the smallest sides, which are across from the 45, to represent W. And remember, W root 2 is going to get us our hypotenuse. Well, in this problem, since 4 root 2 is the hypotenuse, the number that is out in front is really then the side. So really, each side is 4 inches. So to find the area, I can multiply 4 times 4, or I can think of it as 4 squared. 4 squared is 16, and then we want our units. Inches times inches would be inches squared. So there are two examples using our formulas for area of both a rectangle and a square.